Best straight
try
up
to get the
review
best review.
possible.
Well, the most important thing is everybody can see all of our beautiful faces.
That's right.
All right, guys.
I haven't had a haircut since the apocalypse, so I'm kind of
oh, really?
Well,
really?
I got one.
Yeah. The hair. The first thing I wanted to do when I could leave my house was get a haircut. Trust me. I was like, I gotta get out of here. All right, guys. For anybody who's gonna pop in later on or we'll see this archived. I have TTM autograph, aka Troy Rudder, as well as DougzInBoston with us today. We're gonna do the legend that is Troy, right over there, right there. And we're going to just do a TTM autograph discussion. I think all three of us have probably quite a bit of wealth of knowledge. It seems like quite a bit of us have done this for years. And in some cases, how do I do this? Like this.
The opposite way, yeah.
Somebody wrote a book on it. So yeah. So with that being said, we're just gonna have this is gonna be just a Q&A. We're gonna talk about just our experiences doing TTMing. If people want to ask questions, feel free to do so. This is completely just relaxed, just kind of just having fun talking. Hey, what's up, Ron? And there's no real rhyme or reason for anything in particular. We're just gonna have a good time today. Hey, what's up, Dustin? What's up, brother? So let's see. Oh, well, Dustin's already asked a good question, so we'll just start with that question. Thanks, Dustin. So let me put it up here for us to look at if you guys want to take a look. So Dustin's question is, do you think the increased in number of private signings are going to go up or down maybe due to TTM, and has it hurt it at all? I'm gonna let Doug go first because Doug actually handles some of this in his real life. So can you talk a little bit about that, Doug, and then we'll go from there?
Well, I've been TTMing off and on for, I think the first one when I realized I actually answered mail was Joey Galloway's rookie year. He was actually my first TTM success. I just gave it a shot. But in the last few years, I've also worked in the memorabilia on the retail side, and then I also done some on the player rep side. So to a point, I think it's hurt it to a small extent where, and it's not so much the private signings as it has been the online business of it. But a lot of these players, you got a lot of these reps, whether it be some of the retail side or some of the big boys like Fanatics and stuff like that, that are tying a lot of these players up in exclusive contracts. And sometimes the players, I know a couple players that are under contract with Fanatics that, with a donation to their charity or whatever, will still, sign through the mail. But then you have other players that have turned around and will send you just straight up rejection letters. So has it hurt it? It's put a dent in it to a point, I would say, because with the money that these guys are making, the money that these guys want just to make an appearance is no small amount, and it's a lot harder to get a guy that played 30 years ago that didn't make $20 million a season to appear for a weekend versus a guy that's making more money. He makes more money eating breakfast than we make, in a month to get these guys to go and just to do some of the side stuff. I mean, you got guys like Dak Prescott who got caught auto penning his card autograph stickers. You can't get these guys to do some of their paid things, never mind do some of this stuff for free. So I know, testing old players and new players, that some of these new players, they're really hard to get. And a lot of it has to do with the willingness to take their time out, their agents whispering in their ears saying, why are you doing this for free when I can get you a $100,000 contract with Fanatics and or some of these other guys. So has it hurt it? To a point, I do believe it is. And I'm speaking as someone who's repped this guy right here, Dietrich Wise, at a number of signings. Some of them are still really nice, and some of them, your mail is going to grow legs before it sees their hands.
Well, it might get here faster if it grew legs.
Yeah.
So let me ask
right
you,
now.
Troy, just to piggyback off of that, because you and I have had a lot of private conversations about the set you're working on, trying to get all the autographs. And I would assume 5 years ago, or however long ago you were when you maybe first started this, you had mentioned to me in the past that now some of these guys are requesting money, whereas before they weren't. To kind of talk about what Doug was saying, now they're trying to get on these websites or these agents that are saying, hey, you were like barely a semi-star in the 80s and 90s, but now all of a sudden they want $5 here and $10 there.
Or
so
more.
Do you
Yeah.
or more? And you can make the excuse for like a Brooks Robinson or an Ozzie Smith or a Ryan Sandberg. Like, it makes sense. I get it. But when you're talking about like a Vince Coleman, or you're talking about like a Brett Butler or something, not to disparage these guys' names or anything, it kind of takes a little bit of the wind out of the sails of the TTM world. So what has been your experience like, kind of what Doug was saying, like from when it was kind of free or a reasonable charge to now being pushed in, oh, this is a money-making opportunity for me?
Right. And like you said, it was, you kind of have to split it between the current players and the former players. There is a definite split there. But as far as the former players, I think there is something going on. I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with one of the companies that is doing this. I think, I don't know what's going on. The people who are repping the past people, you can infer the name from that, but right. my suspicion, and whether it's true or not, it's a business plan, is that they might be going to these sites such as Star Tiger or these websites and saying, hey, this person is they've gotten 20 successes this month, we should get them on our roster. And so they try to sign them for $5 a card, $10 a card, and all of a sudden they're not signing, and they're specifically for this business. And I think that is hurting, legitimate collectors. But there are also those collectors, that are sending those 7-10 cards at once that are also causing kind of a player backlash. But I'd like to think the people that are sending in that many are in the minority. But really, I think specifically this one company that I'm kind of inferring is, I really think they are going after or looking at the recent successes on some of these forums, and then just sending off a form letter, hey, we can get you X amount per card and X amount percentage, and that's more than you're getting now. And sometimes twice a week we get an email, I'm still on their email list, that says, hey, this person is now signed to this exclusive thing. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I have to Google who that person is, or looking them up on Baseball Reference and say, okay.
Right. Yeah.
Something like that.
Is that the company that's headed by a guy that used to play in the MLB back in the 70s?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that much about it, but
I don't want to start naming names and start throwing
well,
punches.
Like I said, it's a good business opportunity for them. Definitely, it does help the players. I think everybody who sends back and gets a price. I mean, look at Raleigh Fingers, for crying out loud. You write him, he'll sign it and send you a thing back and say, hey, if you really like this, please send me $5. It goes to my whatever. I mean, he doesn't even send it back unsigned. He says, hey, if this is for you, please follow up and send something, and I think that is more of I like that better than, some of the stuff that's going on now. And I've actually done the companies that do the signings for some of the sets, just because that's what I have. It's either that or eBay, so yeah.
Yeah,
but,
like 20 years ago when I first got, yeah, it does. And well, to kind of go off what you were saying is, is that it used to be that way. I mean, 20 years ago when I first got into it, or almost 20 years ago, you know, I would send to Andre Dawson or people like that, and then, like you said, they would sign it, and then they would enclose like a little pre-written note that said, if you could please donate to my charity, I would appreciate it, because they already did the work. They already signed for you and sent it off. And so I saw that more and more frequently back then, whereas now, to what you all are both saying, it's, you know, it's turned into more of a, you know, we want money in an exchange for the autograph or whatnot. And I mean, I understand to a certain degree where that's coming from, good or bad, it is what it is. So I think for me, I was surprised because when the whole hashtag Rona thing started back in March, I think I heard a lot of people in the TTM world, because they were saying initially a lot of these older players will not want to sign because they're scared. And that was an understandable concern at first, because we didn't know it was a scary new world and all that, and I got it. But then after months had ticked away, it didn't seem to be the case. Then I realized, you know what, it may be okay to send off still to these guys. They might still be open to doing the autographs through the mail. And I started back up myself, and I've realized that a lot of those guys are still signing, and it doesn't seem like, again, a lot of the old timers are still open to doing it for free and happy to do it or whatnot. But I feel like there has been a more of a difficulty in the last couple of years to get the newer guys to get on board with it. Yeah. I know you, Troy, you have been in the past, and I don't know if you'll do it this year, have been a big proponent of the spring training set autographing, where you get a lot of the guys where they're more apt not to sign during the year will be more open to it during spring training. And there's a lot of people being shuffled around. And so a lot of times you can get like coaches or new management staffs being moved around. They might be more apt to sign at one location because the team's more autograph friendly opposed to another team. So last year, I know, was kind of crazy with everything kind of falling apart towards the end of the spring training. But it seemed like, if I understood from you correctly, it wasn't as successful the previous year's spring training was. Now, is that my misunderstanding, or was that correct?
I mean, I think we saw less successes. Whether or not, and that could have been because of the, you know, the way the season, you know, sure, things that got there would have been on at the right time or too early because of the way of the time shift, you know, and so maybe those were completely trashed. We don't know. You know, there were some teams that were doing pre-signed stuff for people at the spring training games. But, you know, I still got a few in, but it was nowhere near what I would usually get in. And then the Royals are completely crazy. You never know. Like, you could send 3 cards to 3 different stadiums or 3 different addresses, and you never know which one's going to work. They RTS the same amount from each address, which, yeah, I did a video on that, and I still don't know what the deal is. Yeah. But yeah, spring training, you know, last year was I think the first year I didn't do my hot list, I don't think, just because I wasn't quite sure how that was all going to work. And I know a lot of people didn't get a lot back. How about that way?
And that's kind of what I was thinking too, because I mean, you know, I know a handful of guys that do a TT, like Henry S. will do a lot of TTM for spring training. Megan TT Hobbies, a few other people I know do that, and they didn't seem to have as much of a success from the previous years. But I was going to ask you, Doug, now with your TTM, do you do the spring training thing, or are you doing something a little bit different than that? Like, how is your approach with baseball in general? Because I know you're a big, obviously, Red Sox fan. You're a big fan of baseball in general. I know you're a fan of sports and all, but how do you approach your signings during baseball in particular?
Spring training is something I'll give just a wild, you know, if I'm slow on some other areas, or if I just want to play, so, you know, if I just want to throw some curveballs just to see, because spring training is such a crapshoot, because especially if you're going to try to get some of these guys that are lower tier, you're sending it out and you're crossing your fingers they don't get optioned by the time your envelope gets there. So, some of these guys are going to show up to spring training, and by the time, you get there, you're reading in the news that he got optioned to Pawtucket or Salem or Lowell or something like that, as a Red Sox reference. So sometimes it's kind of a crapshoot. I'm gonna send out to guys that I've tried at Fenway and just weren't successful with. And I do know that spring training does get loaded with a ton of guys trying to sign. They do get a ton of mail. But if I wasn't successful with you at Fenway and I've tried you once or twice, I might throw it against the wall at spring training. I haven't been super successful at spring training, unfortunately. I have seen some people that have been massively successful with spring training. I don't know if it's my timing or the players I'm asking for, but I haven't been too heavy. Even at preseasons, I haven't sent to the Bruins preseason because Bruins preseason used to be open to the public. We used to go to the arena. We'd park amongst the players. Back in the day, you used to be able to hang out at the dressing room door. So there's someone, a team like that, I haven't tried so much. The Red Sox I've tried, I just haven't had a ton of success with them. But I have so many cards that's within my 4 teams that, I try to hit them. I haven't tried too many teams outside of my basic 4. So, sure. I just haven't had a lot of luck with the Sox. I'll give it, if I only have a couple cards left to some player and I haven't had success with them at the stadium, why not? It's going to cost me $1.
Sure. And the Red Sox are one that I never send to at spring training.
They're not the best known signers.
Them and the Yankees, I'm just like, nope, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I will say the Red Sox front office is really good. Like if you want to do a fan pack, they're one of the few teams that still, like major teams, that will still send out a physical fan pack to you. Every time I've ever done one, they've always sent like some of the dirt from Fenway Park. They'll like one year they sent like a whole 12-month calendar of all the Red Sox from that year. They'll send like a handwritten letter or autograph, like signed letter from somebody in the front office. And they do a lot of like little things like that, which I appreciate. They'll send some postcards of like Fenway Park or like a couple of the hot players or something.
Yeah.
But for the actual autograph of a player, like you all said, it's like you're kind of hitting a wall a lot of times with that. They won't do that. So I do think if you're in the fan packs, it's a nice place to go.
Yeah, and I try to look for the former players that have just changed teams as a coach or something like that. I think it was 3 years ago right now. I actually got 2 Mark McGuire's when he went to the Padres for one season, and I got them authenticated and they all came back. And so, that was kind of
that's huge.
That was a Hail Mary for me, and a lot of people tried the same thing and didn't get it back. And so I was pretty happy with that, but you just kind of got to look at that, when Palmeiro played for half a season with some AAA or something like that, you just got to keep your ears on. And
keeping your ears on with stuff like that is always valuable too, because I didn't get a player like McGuire, but back when the Sox won the World Series in 2013, Johnny Gomes was under contract with a local store, and I was getting stuff kicked back from me and Johnny Gomes. Who's Johnny Gomes? He was signing. He was one of the fastest turnarounds on the team, and he gets traded from the Sox, obviously released from his contract from the local retail store. And I had some 11x14s of the SI cover of him posing on the front of the SI cover. As soon as he got traded, I don't think his bag was packed, and I had it already re-rolled. I had it repackaged, sent it off. I think he was traded to the A's. 2 weeks later, I got my stuff back from Johnny Gomes on the A's.
Wow.
He signed, Boston Strong and all that stuff. And it was like, sometimes when you get players that normally get a ton of mail, and of course, every team that gets the World Series, they're going to get a ton of mail the following year. If one of those guys gets traded or moved or demoted or anything like that, sometimes that's a really good time to hit. with something that you might have got rejected before, because I mean, it's worked before where they're not getting deluged on their new team. They're still getting stuff sent to the old team. So it's,
or if they have some kind of a Tommy John or some kind of surgery, not to send it to the stadium, same thing. That's where the private addresses come in,
Yeah.
But,
for sure. So, as you all might know, this will kind of lead into autograph collecting as well. But Phil Niekro passed away today. Now, a lot of Major League Baseball players, among a lot of other just sports stars or whatever. Like yesterday, I'm a big wrestling fan, and Brody Lee died. He was a huge WWE/AEW star. So when it comes to autograph collecting and trying to get some of these older guys, Brody Lee wasn't old, he was 41, but Phil Niekro, for Lou Brock and all these other guys, Whitey Ford passed away and all that. Have you all seen in your years of doing it some of these guys that were the older guys more apt to autograph through the mail because they're from a different generation? Or did you feel like not really? And then a second part of that question is, do you see their prices jump up considerably from, let's say, $70 or whatever on a baseball, or maybe $50 on a card, to all of a sudden jumping like 30, 40, $50 more because they passed away? Like, how does that work in the autograph world, TTM world, stuff like that? If you don't mind, maybe Troy, can you start first and see what your thoughts were?
I mean, as far as the older players, are they apt to sign more through the mail? I think like everybody, it's one person's preference or over another. I know Niekro was $20 per. I know because I looked him up today to see if I ever sent anything. I was like, oh, that's why I never sent that 82 clear, because it was $20. And then you have other Hall of Famers. I don't even know if I have it up here. No, I don't. But who still sign through the mail as well. So I think it's really on an individual basis, no matter what age. Either you do or you don't, that type of thing. But there is definitely, on the podcast I'm on, the Autographers Anonymous podcast, we a lot of times refer that to the window, where, as if you want to buy something, you have to get in there as soon as the news comes out and get on the auction sites and get it before the people bump up their prices. And if you're selling something, then you bump up your prices as soon as that happens. And it's natural, I guess, unless they signed hundreds of thousands of things in the past. I don't know. Pat Neshek's cards are probably never going to go up in value, just because
he signs
everything in 10 per, it seems like, but I think it happens to be on the person. And definitely Phil was a big player. I said no to the $20 just because I wasn't doing the 82 clear set. It was just something that I had, and I was just like, well, that'd be nice. I remember him from back then, but it just wasn't my thing. But yeah, now it's, especially stuff that have been slabbed, it's gonna, right now people are on the websites jacking up the prices, I'm pretty sure. So
what about you? What about you, Doug?
I bought a Kevin Green 30 seconds after he passed away, to a store that I know that deals with Steelers signings. And I got it for a good price, but I know for a fact that some of those prices get jacked up immediately. If you want to purchase someone like that, you really, as soon as you see it come across your phone, you're already 5 minutes behind 50% of the people that are online. So, a lot of the groups that I belong to, you hear a lot of them put up like, hey, there's a moratorium. You got to have a 24-hour settle down window before you start posting any of these pieces of guys that just passed away, because there's opportunists everywhere. And a lot of these groups are really good about the fact that, you got to give it 24 to 48 hours you want to weed out the guys that are trying to pull fakes. because those will flood the market immediately after somebody dies, trying to, oh, I can get that guy for $25 instead of the guy that's 75. Well, it's $25 for a reason. And so, but yeah, when you on eBay, if it's someone that you want, like I wanted a Kevin Green, I struck out with him a couple times. He wasn't the best of signers. But when I saw he passed away, I jumped on just to see what was going on. I did purchase something, but I know for a fact that some of the stuff I purchased jacked up within a day. But yeah, that does happen. And it has to do with, if you want somebody, you either got to be, you got to be just as fast as the people that are posting, or some of these retail shops that don't catch up on their prices right away. That's the only way that you're going to get them at a quote unquote normal price, whether it was normal, whether you thought it was normal when they were alive or not, that's up to you. But some of these guys, these eBay and the retail shops, their prices will shoot, within an hour of them realizing, because one, it's the rarity because now that they're gone. But two, it's also the fact that they're just, their business, they're trying to jump on the opportunity of who was looking for Kevin Green 7 days ago versus who was looking for Kevin Green 5 minutes after he passed away. You're just going for the demand spike, and you're trying to make a buck, and I get it. But if you really got to pay attention to some of that stuff, and if it's someone you want, you got to be fast, because if you wait a day or two, those prices aren't coming down. They'll jump up for the opportunity, and those prices won't come down anytime soon, if at all, because again, now these guys that are selling are going to say, well, he doesn't sign anymore. So if you want it,
go ahead.
Price.
And one of the easiest places to do that flipping, I think, is COMC, because you could buy it and just relist it right away. And so sometimes you see someone buys it and then adds $5 or $10 to it, relists it, and then someone else was like, oh, I better grab that because it's the lowest one, and does the exact same thing, buys it and puts $10 more on it, whatever. And so they make it pretty easy to flip, and it's just an interesting way to make a buck, I guess. It's not something I do, like run to their site and buy and relist, but
so what about what about this question here, guys? Here is and I wasn't for sure about this, but I know we all have had probably situations that might be similar with other people, that it said here, like Buck Leonard always ran his finger over his autograph to make it like a smear or a smudge on it. So have you all ever came across anybody who would sign through the mail or even in person, but then somehow maybe mangled up the autograph a little bit, or kind of like, ruined it in some capacity? And it wasn't an accident. It was maybe like just a part of what they did because, they were just that person. Or is there a story you all could share that you had that experience about? Because I got one I want to tell you, but I'll let Troy, you go first, if you have historically saw this before, or if you ever came across it.
The closest one I could think of is, I never even followed him, so I don't know how to say his name right, which is a pet peeve of a lot of people. So, a Denny Hechavarria.
Oh, yeah, Hechavarria.
Hechavarria. I'm not sure how many C's I had in that just now, but I think everybody for 2 or 3 years thought he was signing with Crayola crayons, because they would never, no matter what you did to the card, his signature would never stick to it. I mean, you could send him a good Sharpie and it looked like it was in green, Crayola, and it would just come right off. And that's, nobody quite knows what was up with that, if we needed to send him real Sharpies or or what. But that's the one that comes to mind right away, of someone who's consistent. I mean, you get a good one every now and then, but just consistently bad. Signatures would be off on the envelope and everything from him for some reason. I don't know.
What about you, Doug? Have you had any in-person or through the mail experiences where you see consistently someone messing with their signature, or just doing something weird?
Well, two people. I mean, I haven't had it done personally, but I've heard stories of people like, just they'll do little smudges, they'll do little things. Manny Ramirez is well known within the community that Manny being Manny is as true as it gets. I don't know if he's, smart as a fox or dumb as a rock, but I knew a guy that paid money to Ramirez Ramirez came to his house, paid him a few $1,000s and brought him to the kitchen table. And I forget the guy's name. I mean, I've met and talked to this guy about it too, and laid out bats and laid out balls. And he's like, Manny was smiling the whole time, and I couldn't figure out why. I thought it was just Manny being Manny. Well, hey, thank you very much. Here's your money, shakes hands and goes. He goes to the table to look over everything and realize the story about Manny is true, that he never signs the same twice. There is no way. This guy's got $2,000 or $3,000 worth of merch sitting on his table, bats, balls, photos. And the guy was livid. He said, there's no way in the world this is going to pass third party or TPA because none of the two signatures looked alike. He goes, literally, of all the items I had, none of them matched. And it's just frustrating because I've heard more stories about Manny doing that to people where it's just, oh, hey, here's a few of the items. And he just signs whatever he wants to sign. And if, it's not his problem if it doesn't pass. Celebrity side, Anthony Daniels he's garnered a bit of a reputation where he tells you where he's going to sign. If you want him to sign on the left side, but he wants the signature on the right side, that's where he's going to sign. And if you don't like it, get out. And part of the problem comes down where he's signed and he does his signature, and then he does these three little dots. Nobody really knows why he does three dots, but he's signed across other people's autographs. He's crossed over into other people's signature. And this one guy freaked out because he went to, I think, Celebration on one of these shows, and he signed into Carrie Fisher, and this was after Carrie Fisher was gone. So he did his signature, and he did the end of the S in Daniels and his three dots, and it went straight into Carrie. And people just kind of threw up their hands and said, Anthony is Anthony. He'll tell you what, you could walk up with a pen. I'm going to tell you, I want you to sign in this particular gold, and I want you to sign here. And he'll tell you, no, I think it'll look better in this pen, and I think it's going to look better in this spot. And he's had many stories where he's crossed over and bumped into other people's autographs. And it's just,
wow.
It's hard to hear stories like that, especially when you're paying these guys money that they're asking for today. None of these guys are, they're not $20 autographs anymore. And it's, if you're paying $300 or $100 or whatever, you sign where I ask you to sign and how I ask you to sign. And
right.
Some of them just don't care.
So that brings me to a story I have, and that's the reason I asked this question initially, is because if you go to conventions or sometimes maybe even through the mail, but this is in particular, like I go a lot of film conventions, and sometimes if you see it, there'll be celebrities there that sign in their convention autograph. That's not their actual autograph. It's to get as many people through the line as possible. And one of the big, in my opinion, the biggest offender of this is Bruce Campbell. He signs a Z as his name. And last time I checked, the name Bruce Campbell does not have a Z in it. And that is his way to get as much money out of us as fans as possible, because there's a guarantee that they're guaranteed a certain amount of money for their time. And if they can get even more money by the more signatures they can get through the line, they're going to take that more money. They're going to take more money. They might have a $5,000 guarantee for the weekend or whatever. And so if they don't make it, the person putting on the show has to give them that money. But, they get $8,000 in autograph signings. That's even better. Everybody's happy, right? And so, if you go see Bruce Campbell, like an actual autograph, like off of a contract or something, it is nothing like his convention autograph. And and I'm like, why would I spend $50 on a Z? Now, now that's his real autograph. That's how he really signed his name in like real life. then I guess whatever. It's not cool, but it's whatever. But it was always hard for me to stand in line for an hour and then spend $50 and then get a Z on my 8x10 or whatever. So I always opted not to do that because of that very reason. So it kind of goes back to maybe even what Troy was saying with like the Phil Necro. It's like you had your opportunity to do it when you knew they were signing. You chose not to, and now you're never gonna get that chance again. Like you're gonna have to, if you want that autograph, you're gonna have to find on the secondary market, you know. So it's not gonna be like what you thought initially. So it is what it is. So I don't know if it's something that a tip that I like to talk about, and we will, if other people have questions, it'll be cool to do. I will real quick just to kind of back up. I know a lot of people are making comments, or they're referencing what we're talking about, or asking questions, or they're like just bringing up some things to our attention. This is mostly just me talking to Troy and Doug. If it's a question I want to use, I'll put it up there, but we're not purposely ignoring anybody, but we're just kind of having a conversation. So I don't want anybody to think I'm purposely not like acknowledging, like when they're saying, hey, Jason, hey, Troy, hey, Doug, we're just talking. This is more for just education purposes, people who might enjoy this kind of thing. If you want to ask a question, please post one and I'll put it up there. But if I don't like, acknowledge you like I do in my other videos or my other live streams, it's not because I'm being a jerk, not like normal, but it's like we have a purpose that I'm trying to get through.
I don't even have the chat up, so I can't. Hi everybody.
Okay, so hey guys, so I just don't want anybody to think we're purposely ignoring people, but I want to make sure we keep the conversation flowing. So my next question is that I don't know if you all ever noticed this, but one of the tips that I've always liked to share with people, and it's not anything super deep, but I think Troy, you've done this before. I know Doug, you've talked about this with me or you. But if you go in person, let's say it's Hank Aaron. In person, Hank Aaron's like $200 in person or something crazy, right? But if you go to their website, they're $100. And you see that through celebrities, through sports stars. If you go to their website or you go through like a TTM, like through their charity, they're actually cheaper than if you go see them in person. Because you're not going to have that experience, of course, because you're not going to meet them in person. So you're probably saving some money that way. Have you ever done something like that where you're like, it's not worth it to go see them in person at like a Comic-Con or like a baseball national, but you go on their website and say, hey, Nolan Ryan's $60 online. He's $150 in person. Have you ever done one of those things to try to get an autograph, or do you rather do the in-person experience?
I mean, I like for conventions. For me, it's usually entertainment ones. I did go to Nationals last year. Yeah, that was last year. Had a good experience, but a horrible experience in the signing lines where they sell you a VIP badge and it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You're still waiting there, and by the time it was my turn to go for one person, the person I really wanted over here, who was supposed to start an hour later, theirs was starting, and so I was like, whatever. So I used all 5 of my tickets on the same person. I can't even remember who it was, but I think more than what you're saying, Jason, I've said, hey, I can get them TTM, so why would I do it? Because usually in that, I've found in that 15-second interaction, it's not that important to me. I've met a lot of celebrities through my prior work, and so it's like, oh yeah, I enjoyed the work. That's all I'm going to say. I enjoy your work. I tried to have a conversation with I'm drawing a blank. I just had it. Jamie Lee Curtis in Chicago, and she did this really weird movie called House Arrest. It's a family movie that was between Halloween and anyway. And so I said, hey, can you sign this for me? And by the way, I named my dog Grover Beindorf. And she was like, who's that? And it was like, she had no idea that was the name of her son in the movie or anything. I was just like, okay, that was supposed to be funny. obviously now. But for me, it's more, are they a good signer, TTM, where I could send them exactly the photo that I want. And yeah, it'd be nice to say hi or something, but, then you get people like, Will Wheaton, who doesn't like you to take pictures while he's signing anything or from the line and stuff like that. So it's just literally an assembly line that goes through. I did try to get a wash from Firefly at a convention, and I was actually pretty excited because, I hadn't seen him before, and I went up and all they had was his pictures from his really bad series called Con Man that he had, where he talks about being a science fiction actor, going to conventions. I mean, no Firefly pictures, no, what was it, iRobot pictures or anything. And so, what to do then? But for me, it's more, can I get them TTM easily? Do they not do auto pens? I'll look all that up right away. Yeah. And then I'll go that way. So,
what about for you, Doug?
Well, I know Peyton Manning through his Payback Foundation. If you send a donation, I think the average is like $25 or something like that. You can get items signed. I think they just do small items like cards and small photos. I don't think you're going to get a helmet or anything like that. I've seen people donating like $25 or so, and they get a Peyton Manning signed photo. And when I've looked at stuff like that, it's like, okay, how often do they do? Like Troy said, do they do TTM? Okay, no, they don't. How often are they going to do a convention? You're not going to get someone like Peyton Manning outside of something like the National or some of these, touring, like huge touring shows. So it's like, all right, I'll think about that. Some of the players, like Troy said about Phil Necro, Bob Horn is the same way. I think he's like $15 or $20, and it's like, do I want Bob Horner bad enough to pay? Yeah, I get an old Atlanta Braves, ticket stub that he's the guy that I'd want to get to sign it. Am I willing to pay a few bucks for it, or But when it comes to the shows, on my side, I've been on both the front side and the back side of the table, and so it depends on the player. Sometimes you can get a really good interaction with the player. When I go to a show, even the celebrity shows, I like to go on Sunday because it's typically dead. Bring my daughters to the show, and I've had some really good table interactions without buying anything, with like Sean Astin and Peter Shinkoda, and I got to talk to Richard Hatch about Battlestar Galactica, and my daughter's playing with Dirk Benedict, and I'm like, I'm fanboying, like you have no idea. But some of these guys that don't do through them, or I've been up to their table talking to them in the back of my head, going like with Steve Blum, who does a lot of voiceover work, and in the back of my head, like, I know you signed through the mail, so I'm just going to sit here and talk to you, because I'm not going to drop $25 for a photo when I can drop $10 and get you to sign 2 things. And not to blow up some of these guys, working at the show, but it's this hobby's not cheap, as a lot of people know, and between postage and supplies and everything like that, when you send out to a player, sometimes you're already $5 to $10 deep, minimum into sending to somebody. So, if I can get you through the mail, I'm going to do it that way. I'm not going to kill myself to drop $50 for the same photo I can send to you for $6.
Right. Well, I agree with you completely, because the whole reason I even asked that question is because a lot of the genre stars, the horror movie stars, they have websites, and and if you go to those websites, it's $20 or maybe $25 for an 8x10 with their signature. They can personalize it for you. They might even put in a description or whatever. But that exact same person with that exact same 8x10, that exact same inscription, is $50+ at the show. So that's why I was saying, like, for people who are looking for maybe budget collecting autographs or whatever, it is an option if you really like somebody out there. Like you were saying, Phil Necro was $20, but if you met him like at a convention, like at a national, he might be $40. or whatever, you know, like some of these guys that we're talking about, or more, right? Especially they're Hall of Famers and things like that we talked about, like Andre Dawson and Cal Ripken Jr. and all these guys. They might have charities that they'll sign through a third of the cost. But if you meet them in person, they're going to charge you the full price. So it can be done, but you have to do, I think a thing that we'll say today, and if we do this in the future, is you got to do the research. The research is key.
That sounds familiar.
Right. I know it's a crazy idea. I know. And I know that in this community in particular, there's a lot of real aggressive anti wanting to help each other out. And I think Troy probably knows more than even both. Maybe I don't know about you, Doug. We never spoke about it before, but I know Troy has a very strong connection with that community where there's a lot of pushback on helping each other out because they don't want you to help. They think that you're taking away from them and their opportunity to get more TTMs than the next person. And so, which is the next question I wanted to ask, and we can kind of piggyback this. Ziggy asked the question, do you sell any of your TTMs or do you PC them? And that kind of goes to what we're saying, because some of these guys, they act like they're trying to preserve the hobby because they're trying to protect it, but really it's their golden goose, and they don't want other people to come along and get some of that money, some of those autographs, because they want to keep going back to that money tree. And the more people who find out that so and so signs for free or $5 per or $5 per, they're going to ruin it for everybody else. So I don't know, Troy, what's your thoughts about this whole view of not helping each other out? Do you sell your TTMs? Do you PC them? How does that work for you?
Well, just if I could close out what we were talking about just a little bit.
Sure.
If you do want to go to the convention, then it's worth you to have that 30-second interaction and see their panel. I think that's totally worth it, you know. But if it's someone that I just want an autograph from, then I'll try to do it the other way. But if you want to meet your favorite person or whatever, which is what a lot of people do, especially, you know, then that's perfectly fine. I don't want to say, oh, it's just cut or dry whether they sign or not. You know, if that's what you want to do it. But you know, I've tried to sell some of my excess every now and then, but and when I say excess, you know, sometimes I do send two of the same card, or I get another one some other time through a trade or something. And for me, it hasn't really been worth it, you know, just doing it one by one. I guess just is the person gonna get it and say they don't want it? Are they gonna try to say it's not real? Is it really real since it's TTM? You know, that comes up a lot. I've tried to sell it a few times, and as Jason knows, my biggest success was not even an autograph selling. It was my Cal Ripken Jr. 1982 Fleer that I had slabbed. I should have gotten more money from that. Anyway, but you know, I have tried to sell some TTMs, both cards and photos, and it hardly ever is as lucrative as I want to say, as I thought it would be. And mainly because I do, you know, people that are in the past for the most part. And yeah, it's just, on the flip side, I'm not really sure, like, people who charge are often saying everything I sign goes up on eBay, and I don't think that is necessarily the case either. You know, I really, there's no way to track it, but I want to think the people that do TTM just to sell it is less than 15%. You know, I would hope it's less than 15%, but the problem is there's just so many autographed cards out there from right. Who knows when. People don't know when they were signed. You know, you could say, oh, I signed that, and you put it on eBay. Well, no, I've had this one for 6 years when I came to Arizona for spring training or something, you know. And I think that's where the players and celebrities kind of run into some interesting predicaments when they try to out people on social media and say, this guy wrote me a letter and I know it's going directly on eBay and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm not sure I'd be, trying to bust someone on social media, and then showing their address too. No, that's a whole other, private addresses are a whole other discussion. I don't know if we'll get into, but I have tried to sell. It never went well. I'd sell one or two, and then I close it down because it's a lot of work, scanning and listing and shipping and all that type of stuff. I did do it initially. My first one I sold was actually so I knew how to do it correctly for the book, and so I actually bought a label maker that prints 4x6, shipping labels, and got the painter's tape and did everything. And so I'm like, if I'm going to talk about selling, I better try to sell some. And I sold a few, and I was like, this is time consuming, and you never know if something's going to sell, and people complain, about the condition when they get them, despite what it says. And you see your own, when you're out there looking, you see people try to scam and say it's, photos are an authentic reprint, which means the signatures are on the photo, but it's an authentic reprint of, Carrie Fisher and, I'm just like, authentic reprint. There's no such thing for
it's an eBay 101.
I'm like,
that's
what are you trying to do?
Like, what?
So, me, I have tried to sell. That was a long way to say I have tried to sell some things. I tried maybe for a couple weeks, then I'm like, this is not for me. And the thought of consigning it to someone just never really appealed to me. So I'm like, no, I want to say I have 99% of what I've ever gotten, or more. So.
What about you, Doug?
Well, selling my excess versus, I do sell, and my friends like to bust on me in a way that I'm the king of breaking even, because that's really when I sell stuff. I'll sell a few. I'll send a few, maybe 2 or 3, and sometimes it's for trade, and sometimes I'll try to flip. But I'm not going to flip for a lot of money within the groups. It's like $1 or $2, and because like these cards here, they're inserts. I'm not interested in inserts. I'm not into the jersey cards. I'm not into I've told this to Jason before. I'm not into like a lot of that stuff. I just want the base cards so I can get it signed. I don't care. So will I sell those cards? Sure. I'm just trying to get my money back on the packs. If I send 2 photos out to a celebrity, I'll keep one for my personal collection. And I'll try to just within the market value. But what I'm basically, when I do try to sell it, I'm not looking to get rich. And like Troy said, it's time. I've had this stack of cards here for over a month, and I haven't listed any of them because it's a pain. It's, but I'll sell it. And I tell people, and I do sell them straight out, I need the stamp money. I need the envelope money. I need it, I'd rather, if I can make, $10 off this photo, it's not going in my bank. It's not going to even buy me lunch. It's going to the post office. It's because, this hobby hasn't gotten any cheaper. And between the way the post office handles some of this stuff and the cost of cards today, the cost of photos, the cost of, if you're really into this hobby, it went from something that you did on the side as fun to something that it can cost a penny depending on how deep you get into it. So if I can make $10 off the second photo I got back, great. That's a book of stamps. That's maybe some sleeve, a few packs of sleeves or a few this. I've never made a ton of money. And like I said, my friends chuckle at me. I'm the king of breaking even because if I break even, that's awesome. I still have my collection. And if I can trade or, I'll sell my excess cards on some of the groups for it's like $1 to $2. Why? That's the cost of 2 stamps.
Right.
I've made, if I sell you the card for $1, I've basically made the money back on what I did to send it out. But I'd like to say I've been flipping cards hand over fist, but like Troy said, there's so many of them out there. I'm listing a card for $1 and it's one of a million out there. Or the chance of finding someone that actually you spend more time listing it than you actually do selling and prepping it to go up. So
you could do the sell for $1 and $6 shipping for a plain white envelope.
the old eBay trick, where I'm going to sell you the CD for 90 cents, but I'm going to charge you $10 for shipping. So
and it's a plain white envelope with no padding or anything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me, I mean, and Troy alluded to this early in our conversation at the beginning, is that, you know, for most of us, I think all three of us probably kind of do the same thing. You might do a couple cards max. You're not doing 4, 5, 6, whatever cards.
No.
So all these are PC cards anyways. And if you do get the extra one back here and there, you try to flip it maybe for a trade, or like you said, for a couple bucks if you do that. You know, I can tell you right now, I started doing TTMing in like 2001, probably when I first started. It's almost 20 years. And then I started doing in-persons, like the conventions we talked about. I can tell you now, I just now thought about this. I sold a DVD, and a popular thing that was bad. I don't know if you all have seen this, but is to take the inserts out or the cover out and get the director or the star of the movie to sign the DVD cover or whatever. So there's a guy called J.R. Bookwalter out of Ohio who did a 80s low budget shot on video camera, a zombie movie that was released by Anchor Bay back in like the early aughts on DVD. But he did that movie back in like 89, 88, something like that. And I got that in person with my own money. I knew JR as a friend, actually. We connected through the community, and he signed it for me. It was called like the Dead Next Door or something. That was the name of the movie. And it didn't even occur to me I went to sell that DVD, the DVD, not the autograph. And then when I pulled it off my shelf, I was like, oh my gosh, he signed this. But, you know, I went ahead and sold it because I already put it on eBay. I felt bad. I updated my information saying this was signed in person by Jared Bookwalter or whatever. But, you know, and that sold for like $20. The DVD, it's $20.
Right.
You know, so the autograph was like probably the person wasn't even buying it for the autograph, because that was an out of print DVD by Anchor Bay or Synapse Films. No one even probably cared that the director signed it. They wanted that DVD because it's a hard to find DVD. So it goes back to what Troy was saying. Sometimes these celebrities think a little bit too high of themselves, thinking that everybody's out to sell their autograph. If you do an in-person autograph or an authenticated autograph search on eBay, unless it's some mega star, they sell all day long well below $20. So no one's getting rich off of most of these people's autographs. I mean, they think that their autograph is like, you know, some kind of like Fort Knox gold standard that they can make all, like us collectors are making money off their autographs. It's like, no, you might sell the guy's autograph for $15. That's by far a ton of money. And like to what you were saying, Doug, it's like that's like a sandwich and a stamps and some stamps. That's it. No one's making money off of your autograph, or whoever it is.
When the Bruins practice used to be open, and you know, I'd go, and there was a bunch of regulars, and there was one year I did all the photos, some of the photos by myself, and I could only find some quality images that were like 4x6 size. So I'd do 2 a page, whatever. And I just line it up. I'd get ready for the guy to come out. And there was one player named Byron Bing. I know everybody knows Bing. Everybody knows him. I think that was his name. And he comes out, and I had 2 4x6s on a sheet. And he comes up, and I'm like, hey, could you sign it? And he was a Providence guy. He was barely coming out. He was like an injury replacement kind of guy. And he signed in the photo of the 4x6, and he goes, are you going to sell this stuff on eBay? And I just got so sick of players asking me this at that point, and for who this guy was. And he signed the second 4x6. I said, look, this is a 4x6. This on eBay wouldn't sell after fees, would not sell for enough money for me to go get a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts across the street, a small, waiting for you to sign for another photo for me next week. I'm like, no, this is for my personal collection. And I used to take a few days off, and some of the regulars knew me after a couple of years that I used to keep my folder of photos in my car. I had an SUV, and we'd all park by some of the exit ways. So I'd hang out at my truck, and I'd point to my truck saying, if you want to see my photos, they're right over there. This is going to my personal collection. But so many of these players, after a while, were just like, are you going to sell this on eBay? And I'm like, it's a 4x6. How much is a 4x6? You're not Bobby Orr. You're Byron Bits. They're not being bits. But which, nobody's going to buy this photo that doesn't have the last name Bits. Nobody is going to buy this.
Right.
So it's, but yeah, some of these players.
Senator, I know Byron Bits.
Yeah.
I'm a friend of Byron Bits. You know Byron Bits.
You know Byron
Your
Bits.
mom's not even going to buy it, so don't even worry. So here's a good question here that Ron sent up, and this is specifically for any of us who do TTM. I think Troy already alluded to maybe one of his biggest surprises, but what was the biggest surprise that you ever received TTM-wise autograph? Not in person, not somebody you sat down with like you were saying before, someone you TTM'd. I know you mentioned Mark McGwire, which is like a huge, like most people are not gonna get that lucky. But other than like a Mark McGwire, what are some of the other ones that you think were pretty big? And that was by Ron asked that question.
I never tried Wayne Gretzky when word came out that Wayne Gretzky was signing to his dad.
I tried and I never got anything. No.
But surprise. If you're in the TTM world and you follow it, whether it's be through sportscollectors.net or Star Tiger, and anybody interested in TTMing out there, those two sites for a year will cost you a total of $50, and they're amazing depending on how you want to what you're looking for, because each site. But you see some of these players that you're going to give a shot to, and me being even though I'm from Boston, don't get me wrong, I'm a Steelers fan. And I sent out to Hines Ward with a nice letter and a couple unique items. I could say that because they weren't photos. Hines Ward hasn't signed in years. I got him his rookie year. And if you look at Star Tiger, he's never signed, but he signed for me. And I don't know if it was the letter. I don't know if it was what I sent. I put it away. One of the things I sent was a Steelers playing card, and he kept everything else that I signed, which is something which makes me laugh, but whatever. And he signed on the Steelers logo on the card. I sent it to the Jets. But when I looked up online, he hasn't signed for a very long time. So sometimes that would surprise the people out there. That's individual I gave it a shot in the dark, knowing he never signed for a long time. But it's really, sometimes it's the biggest surprise is going to be that blind luck shot that you throw out there. Like Troy said, he threw to Mark McGwire and he signed. To me, it's whoever you least expect. It's always that blind shot in the dark that you're going to throw out, and suddenly you get it back for some unknown reason. You were selected out of everybody else, and it's I don't have anybody specific. I mean, my most recent again would be Hines, because it's I threw the crap against the wall, and it that one time it stuck. It stuck.
What about you, Troy? Do you have one in particular outside of McGwire that was kind of a big surprise? You, like Doug said, you threw it against the wall and it stuck?
Well, I started off when I was, it might have even been before high school, before the internet, finding the addresses and
back in the olden days.
Yeah, back then, and without sending any photos, so you get agency photos back, and now that scares the heck out of me. You always send something, don't you? But back then it was just like, oh, if you have something laying around, send it to me, and one of those, now I'm pretty sure it's a secretarial, and that was Robin Williams, back then. But I did get one from DiCaprio that is so close. It makes me wonder. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's I don't know. If you, well, there you go.
I don't know, maybe Jennifer Lawrence when she was actually signing mail before she went through the stamp phase and then the secretary.
Right. But you know, I'd say McGuire was a pretty good Hail Mary at the time, and Jason and I joke about Brett Ambler here.
That guy is awesome.
The keep on kazooing the kazoo kid. So
the kazoo kid,
our very special friend. But you know, that's more of a fun one than a Hail Mary, really. But
so for me, I could be here all day, and that's not what this is. But I think we both alluded to it. All three of us, I should say, all alluded to it. Like, especially when you do TTM, we talked about, like Doug mentioned, like some of the players even getting paid, and they'll do auto pens. We talk about ghost signers. We talk about secretarials. We're talking about stamps. There's all kinds of things that it could be. Like, none of us know for sure sometimes because we're not there. Unless you get it in person, you really never know. It could be anything. Like sometimes there's like horror stories of celebrities who have their wives signed for them, or they're like brothers or sister. They get all their mail and they sign
Williams,
for them.
Don Zimmer, Terry Bradshaw. Yep.
Right. And sometimes it looks so good that, you know, it could be either in person or it could be, again, like a stamp, or it could be a second. I mean, there's ways of finding it out. There are things that you can do to kind of look into it. And of course, it goes back to what we talked about before, and we'll mention it a million times, this research and find out about if this person's, you know, famous for doing anything but doing the actual autograph. And so I have one I think that I always enjoy. I have actually two, and I always think these can't be real because this guy's always been famous. But he's such an egomaniac, you don't even know. Like, you think, like, if I get it, I'm signing it. But also, he's somebody that's always so busy. Can you imagine him sitting around all day autographing? And that is, I mean, that's the autograph right there. You can see it. That was just like his autograph and all his stuff. And then he signed this for me too. Right there. You know, right there. Now, do I believe Donald Trump really autographed this? I want to believe it. But the reality of it is somebody like that really autographing. It goes back to what Troy just said about Robin Williams, you know? And I mean, I think a lot of us can show off different things that we have in our collections that you want to believe is real and that you think it's real. But let's say I'm the guy that Troy or Doug puts on Star Tiger. We talked about that back in the olden days. It was Star Archives, and you post a success in their chat room. I'm sure you all remember this, and then everybody jumps in there and tears you apart. That's not a success. That was a secretarial, or that's a stamp, or you're dumb. So you just never know. You just never know. Like, so, I mean, the thing is that unless you got it in person, you don't know. But I feel like, you know, I could go through my whole autograph collection here and show people all day long big surprises the Hail Marys I did. But unless I know for sure, I almost feel like sometimes I can't feel confident saying this is real. I'm sure we all have that experience.
Every celebrity out there, especially, you're going to have somebody out there that's going to say, "Oh, it's fake." And I know to your experience where you post it and people start ripping it apart, it's one of the things that you get a lot of people out there, like especially fan mail biz is big for that. Where someone will post it, "Oh, where did you get it from?" "Well, here's the address." "Oh, it's Spanky Taylor."
Right.
And then someone on the website will turn around and say, you know, "Hey, Spanky Taylor, that's AutoPen. That's not real. I'm not trying to ruin your buzz, but that's that's what Spanky Taylor does. It's a company that's set up that has celebrities under contract, and they do auto pen. And then you get some of the people out there that are white knighting, saying, oh, don't ruin their experience, or don't, whatever. And it's like, I'm not trying to ruin their experience, but when they hang that thing on the wall, or they try to sell it or give it away down the road, they're going to find out the hard way that, they've been worshiping a bad autograph for 20 years. And it's like, let them know straight out the gate that, we saw it, me and some friends of mine saw it with Jennifer Lawrence, where she used to post on her website, if you want to send fan mail, send it to my address here in, I think it was Kansas. And then after some of her Hunger Games and stuff like that started to hit and get big, all of a sudden her signature changed. And I got a couple things back where they just stamped it. And it's, it's hard. I'm hoping that I did earlier on, that I did get some good stuff signed with a good signature, but you want people to know, in my opinion, that they got something that might be a little bit sketchy.
Sure.
They might,
and
but
also,
some people, they're still cool with that. If it's auto pen, if that's what you enjoy, because you just have the signature, that's great. But, part of me as a collector wants people, would want some people to know, being like, all right, just understand that one might be, it's on the fence.
Sure. And and like you were saying, and I think this is something else, is like, as a hobby evolves, or sometimes how the celebrities or subjects, because not everybody's a celebrity per se, they evolve too. Some of them will do the in-person autographs or the TTMs, and then they stop doing it because of whatever the reason is. And I think that for us as TTMers or collectors of autographs, you have to realize that sometimes these players, sometimes these celebrities, you catch them on the way up. You can catch them on the way up before they become famous. You can get their autographs. And Troy can speak to this a lot, actually, because, if they're a young star starting out, maybe they got like a TV show for the first time, or they got their first movie deal, and they're still in their teens, maybe even younger. You probably going to get an autograph because they haven't really had a huge career yet. But then they take off and they stop signing because now they're a huge star, or they just don't have time for it anymore. And so, the hobby evolves just like the player or the celebrity evolves. Like, you're saying with Jennifer Lawrence, when she first started out, she was signing. And you want to believe that's real autographs. You were sending them to her residence or wherever she was in Kentucky. And then all of a sudden she blew up and she's not doing it anymore. Or, I'm sure you all know this, but like sometimes if they're doing plays on Broadway, they're way more apt to autograph during that because they can't leave. They're there the entire week, all weekend long. They're doing 2 or 3 shows a day, all weekend long. And so they're just sitting around in their dressing rooms waiting for the next show. So I've got a lot of their autographs that way by using the Broadway addresses, because they are not on a movie set where they're like being necessarily as pampered or have a lot more downtime. It's like they're always on the set, they're always running around. They don't have a lot of downtime. But when they're sitting around in their dressing room for 10 hours a day doing 2 shows, then they have a lot of downtime. They're more apt to autograph. And so you just got to learn these. You got to learn these tricks. And now, are you always going to get success? Of course not. And somebody who was signing really well at one autograph or one location might stop. And you may never know why they stopped doing it, or why they switched from authentic TTM to pre-prints or whatever. There's all kinds of things. But you can do these things, but you just have to understand that, like Doug was mentioning, sometimes the truth hurts, and you just don't want to find out the hard way that that autograph you thought it was real is actually an auto pen or a secretarial. Like, I'm going to show you all this one. This is my very first autograph, and I mean, it's like, it says to Jason, and I'm like, man, this is so real. I can't believe this guy autographed this for me. And then when I went to go post it on like Star Archive back in the day, people were like, you're an idiot. He does not sign through the mail. And I was like, but it's real. He put it to Jason. They go, it's a secretarial. He's been doing secretarials for like 30 years. And it's Al Pacino.
Oh, yeah.
And if you see up here, it says to Jason. So I'm like, oh my gosh, Al Pacino autographed this for me. But if you look at his in-person autograph, it looks nothing like this autograph. So it's a real autograph. It's just not an Al Pacino. So it's probably a secretary or like one of his like, handlers or whatever, whatever. But it was not his autograph. But I mean, you learn these things along the way. It's a part of the process.
There are hybrids too. I wrote a letter to Gary Sinise in care of his foundation, and I got I actually sent in a donation. Okay, so I got something back, and it was clear that he had signed it, but the two line was different than the other handwriting. So they have a big stack of them there, and a secretary writes in the two, and then it must have been a month and a half later, I get another package, and I'm like, what? They're hitting me up for money again? What's going on? And I open it, and there's actually another signed photo with a longer inscription and a little post-it in the corner that said, this person gave a donation and his stepdad was in Vietnam. Can you send him a better picture or something? So I got the same picture I had sent, and then he sent me one back that was clearly real. And so, that happens a lot of sometimes too, where I'm sure you might have had that where you send one picture and get another one back because they might be pre-signed, or it doesn't mean they're not real, but that happens as well.
I got that. I think it was with an actress, Laura Minnell, where I sent a photo. She was on a show that was on Sci-Fi called Alphas. I ended up getting a studio headshot, like a management headshot, supposedly signed by her. Channing Tatum did the same thing. If you sent something in, Tatum would sign it, but then I think someone in the office would ascribe the two, to Doug, to Troy, because it was definitely totally different handwriting. And I think Heidi Klum did that as well. It was just a stack of pre-signed stuff, and somebody in the office would look at your letter and sign, to Jason. And that went off in the mail. There are celebrities that will do that. Harry Potter, what's his name? He does Daniel a ton. Radcliffe. Daniel Radcliffe. When they get so famous, they don't have the time to sign, but they still want to be good to the fans. So someone like Radcliffe would have 5x7s. They would just sign a stack of 5x7s, and that's what you would get. You don't, you wouldn't get your item. You might not even get your item back, but you would get something.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what about this here? This will go to Troy because Troy wrote the book on TTMing. The question from Dr. Exclusive is for us noobs, what is an auto pin autograph?
Well, most of the time we're talking about, the technology changes a lot, but the ones that we're usually talking about in terms of presidents or astronauts, or even some celebrities have these, is basically the ones that I've seen online, of course. They're a disc. Oh, I can't. They're bigger than that, but that's all I can get in the picture. So you have a disc with a path that a arm can trace, and so that's connected to another arm with a pen, and you can just put the piece of paper on the easel type of a thing, and this little thing traces the pattern, and at the end of the arm, it does exactly what the little, or in some cases the big disc, sometimes a 1-in-1, has on the template, so to speak. And in the past, a lot of these have been very noticeable because they go slow and they kind of jag around. What's that one? Oh, we're not going to get into Jimmy Carter. That's a big controversy whether the Jimmy Carters are real or not. Most people think that, most of those I think are real, but anyway,
the reason I was showing that because I thought it was an auto pen. So
Jimmy's a different animal altogether. He's I wouldn't be I wouldn't be surprised if they're all for him are real. But I don't want to interrupt with Troy on his.
I thought I was actually showing you an auto pen. I'm sorry. Please continue.
So some of the auto pens that I have gotten back are Gordon Ramsay, Matthew Broderick, pretty much any Neil Armstrong, obviously before a lot of the astronauts. I said Matthew Broderick. I actually used to tear the auto pens on my videos, and I called it Brodericking them. So
I remember that. Oh my gosh, yes.
The jury is still out on Val.
You got a lot of hate for that.
Yeah, Val Kilmer, who's still kind of iffy. But a lot of times, so the way most people can tell is that it kind of starts and stops as it follows that template, and you get a lot of both jagginess and overlapping, where it might go and go back a little and go and go back a little. The worst one I had, like I said, I threw away, was Gordon Ramsay, and he wasn't even that popular when I sent to him. It was like the first or second season of Hell's Kitchen, and I was like, really? But they,
was it the one where he's sitting on top of the counter?
No, it was just his white.
Oh,
I have that same one. I have that same one somewhere.
But one of the ones I sent to, I used to work with a lot of young performers in California in the 90s, and I actually met. I used to do a lot of events with Shia LaBeouf before he went crazy, and so I wrote I wrote this really great letter, and I sent it to his house. I was like, okay, I have I put a lot of things that only he would, laugh at. I get it back, and this is in the book too. And I get it back, and I'm like, finally, I got a Shia. This was right after, I think, Crystal Skull, maybe. And then my friend Ben messaged me. He's like, yeah, that's an auto pen. And so in one of my videos, I actually scanned both autographs, and it's kind of like war games. I kind of did a and they lined up perfectly exact. And, you really do, on this, what Jason's mentioned, what we do on Autographers Anonymous, the whole do your research thing, it's really key, because even people on Star Tiger, they'll say probably authentic on something that everybody else still pretty much knows is not. And there's no way to, they don't police those. And so you can say something's probably authentic, even if it's, they don't go back and correct that. But so that's kind of what an auto pen is. And they've gotten better. I mean, they don't stutter as much. And I don't know how big normal ones are, if it's like a toaster size now. The bigger ones were like drafting table easels, or the older ones with a little.
So they could auto pen no matter what you sent in, whether it was a poster or a photo or a CD. Another thing with the auto pens that some people will recognize is, if you're looking at the photo, like Troy mentioned, it stutters and it stops. So when you're looking at, like, Ronald Reagan had 20 guides, because he would, some of his auto pens would cater to who wrote it. If it was someone that was a fan of him in the movies, he had a nickname like Buzzy or Buddy or something like that, and he would auto pen the letters like that. But when you're looking at an auto pen, sometimes with the machines, you have stop points. Like Troy said, it'll go up and then it stops for a second, and then it'll make the next line. And sometimes you can see, because the marker will sit for a second before it goes down. It's not a smooth guide transition. Sometimes you can see where it goes on the first line and it'll stop before it goes. You see the dot. And when you see multiple dots in the signature, you can, you're looking at an auto pen. They're just using whatever guide they had set up for that. And some of these stars will, they're not dumb. They'll set up multiple signature guides. So, if they're doing like a CD mail-in where Pat Nashak was busting on Justin Bieber for sending out auto pens, you need to, or even like the books, you got to be careful with these signed books, especially even at Barnes & Noble during Christmas season. They'll do like 3 or 4 different guides. So when you sit there and just grab two random books and put them next to each other, well, they're two different signatures. They must be real. Not necessarily. If they're using 3, 4, 5 guides, you have to go through a stack of these books and just eyeball some of these that look exactly alike. Or like what Troy did, where he just, photo manipulated the two signatures and line them up together. That's really the only real identifiers. You need a little bit of technology on your side if you can't spot it perfectly with your eye right off the bat to know that, a lot of these guys, Gene Simmons got busted doing that. Like someone had mentioned in a comment, Dak Prescott got nailed for that, but he didn't get nailed. They didn't find out he did that until after they stick it and sent out the cards in the pack.
Yeah,
Right.
there was a big brouhaha over when people started getting things right away from Chris Pratt at Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and everybody was like, "Oh man, that's awesome, and then more started coming in, and he did these little hearts for everybody, and then they're like, wait a minute, and so those first 5 people are like, yeah, probably authentic, and then after that it's like, yeah.
Well, I think it goes back to what you were saying, Doug, earlier, and I think it's for anybody who's interested in TTMing, anybody who's interested in autograph collecting in general, but especially if it's something that you're not in person, you're not watching with your own eyeballs, the person signing it, is that why would you not want to be told the truth? Like, I think that, if you're spending your money, your time, your research that we've discussed, and somebody comes along and tells you because they've had years of experience or they got the exact same success that you received and they know it's not real, why would you not want to know that you have a fake? Like, to me, I would feel like foolish to show that to someone, like, oh, look, I really got this autograph of Ronald Reagan. And then you find out, like, no, really, that was some auto pit he did back in '87 or whatever. Right. And I mean, I think maybe, of course, there's always like, no one wants to be embarrassed. No one wants to feel embarrassed. Like, no, that's not a human feeling that anybody wants to experience. But at the same time, knowledge is power when it comes to that. And that becomes research. And then have someone, like I said, when I was really hot and heavy into it, a decade ago or longer, you said I could sit there and look at autographs and go, this one's real for sure. This is auto pen. This is secretarial. Because you see the same ones over and over and over again. You see the in-persons, And I mean, the thing is like so many people don't want to be told the truth. And I don't understand that sometimes. I'm fine. Like when I was showing you the Jimmy Carter, I was prepared you all to be like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's the fake, You're like, that might be real. I'm like, what? But it's like, we're all still learning. It's always a learning process. Yep. And so you just never know. I think the main thing is to be open to other people's suggestions, be open to other people's views on the way to collect or way they TTM, and maybe learn from other people who've been doing it for a while. I mean, like Troy, obviously we talked about this before. You wrote a book on it, but I'm sure you'd be the first one also to say there's tons more that I don't know. It's always changing. It's always something's coming along down the pike that I wasn't even thinking about when I wrote the book, but now it's a thing. Especially hockey player names. But yeah, yeah, man, hockey player names. Yeah.
No, but for me on those forums, if someone's asking, "What do you guys think?" That's different. One of the I actually had this kind of habit. I went to a taping of The Big Bang Theory out in LA, and one of the prizes they were giving out throughout the 6 hours of taping, whatever the heck it was an autographed cast photo. I was like, that would be the thing, right? And so I got up there. I was almost dancing without my shirt. I was doing all this stupid stuff the warm-up guy was talking about. I was grinding with some young lady that was told to open her eyes. She thought it was someone from the cast, and it was me, doing this whole thing, and I didn't get the signed photo, okay? Someone else did, and I looked at it afterwards, and it was a reprint. Like, oh man, you could tell from the looking at it that it was signed and just copied. I was like, oh, but I wasn't going to tell them,
Right.
I just kind of like okay, now I know not to do that again. But you know, I wasn't right then and there. I wasn't going to spoil anything. But if someone asks, then you know. But there are some people that will jump in and jump on it as soon as you post something, and that's, you know, that's just personality type thing. I don't know.
So in a group setting, in a group setting, like I had mentioned earlier, where some people would post on, like, you know, some of the sites, and some people jump in and say, hey, that's fake or whatever. And you have the white knights that come in and try to yell at, no, don't speak down about what they got. But when I would jump in and say, hey, that's AutoPen, that came from Spanky, or that came from whoever, I don't want you to drop your money on getting a photo, putting out the mail, you know, your time and money spent, if you're sending it out because you fully believe that it's signed, when it's, you know, commonly known to be a preprint, save your money to go to somebody else. If you want a preprint just to have their signature for whatever, great, go spend your money and do that. But if you're going to, I just, because I see people posting a success like that, and then I see 100 people dropping photo money, dropping postage money, and sending it out, thinking that it's real when it's not. And then it's like, you know, I'd rather save those 100 people some money, you know, and time than, you know, letting them know, hey, that's a preprint, this company, that's all they do, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things is that, I mean, it goes without saying, it's just about life. There's always a right or wrong way to handle any situation. You know, you can always let somebody down, you know, in a respectful way, like, hey, you know, you may be right, but this person has a history of blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And then just put it on them, you know, that way, you know, you can just share it with them, take it for what it's worth. They could say you're a liar, you don't know what you're talking about, or they might be like, you know. But, you know, like I said, I think, like, again, what Troy said is, this is a personality thing. Sometimes people like to jump on there to kind of get people while they're down and kind of like be like, oh, how can you be so stupid? And other people, like you said, you want to just help people, like Doug said, not to be blowing your money on something that probably is not real. You know,
authentication money or whatever.
Right, exactly. Because I mean, I know, Troy, you talked about this a lot on your channel over the years, is, you know, you'll go in waves of just like spending tons of money on, like, just lots of, just, you know, per month on waves of requests. And then you'll maybe hold off for a month or so and let those ones trickle in. And then you'll push again and go out for another one. And it gets expensive. I mean, it's not a cheap hobby because, like Doug was saying, every request is minimum $1. And if you do that times 30, 40, 50 a month, if not more, I mean, that's a lot of money to be blowing on maybe half the success rate, maybe less than half, depending on how hard the person you're trying to get may be. Now, I know a lot of us might go after people that are relatively low-hanging fruit to kind of build some momentum and to kind of get your juices flowing again. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit I started doing this again last month, and I was going after some low-hanging fruit, and I still continue to do so. But at the same time, you know, I'm looking at certain things that I find interested about their careers or whatnot, you know. But I'm not trying to go for Tom Cruise right out of the gate. Like, it's not going to happen, you know.
Send the COVID mask to him.
Yeah. Right, exactly. If I do, I'm going to send him a COVID mask. I'll send him an N95 mask.
That'd go right with the kazoo.
So let me ask you all this. So this is something that I think that hey, what's up, Caleb? Let me ask you all this, because this is something I never thought about doing, but I know it is something that can be done in, like, bigger cities, is that, like, if people do, like, plays or they do musicals, you go and meet up with them backstage on their way out the door at the end of the show. And they're a lot more likely to sign for you a lot of times then as well, because, you know, you're the fan who came to the show, hypothetically speaking, you went to the show, and then you want to go out there and meet them before they get into their cars. And have you ever heard of that? Have you ever done that yourself, or have you ever heard of that as something that you would make an opportunity to try to do, or do you not want to deal with the hassle of sitting around trying to maybe get an autograph?
That's something that I don't have an interest in, really.
Yeah, me neither. Actually, I have no interest in doing it.
Me
What about
neither
you,
on
Doug?
that. No, I just never found it exciting to stand outside in the cold waiting for a guy that might not show up.
Right, or may
So
not
it was
sign.
more, yeah. So I mean, Bruins practice was really the only one that because it was guaranteed that you were going to bump into some of the players. You parked next to half of them, so
Right.
it was kind of I think it was at Sutter when he was coaching the Bees. I missed him and ran up to his car. He was actually parked a couple cars away from me and
You ran
knocked
up
on
to his car.
Wait,
knocked up. I know I did.
Did you really say park the car just
Park
now?
the car. Yeah, I parked by his car. Yes, I did. And no, you can't park in Harvard Yard. There's nowhere to park there. They made sure of that. But no, I walked up to Sutter's car and knocked on his window because I had just missed him because I was getting somebody else and I forget who it was. And knocked on his window. And he looked at me, and I just held up his card. It was a 79 tops, or was it 80 tops, I think. And I just said, would you? And he wound his window down, and he signed it. But that was because that stuff was more guaranteed because you were amongst them. But if I'm going to stand outside, if I'm going to go to a venue to see somebody, I'm going to go to see them. And then maybe if I could run around out back and but I just never had I never had the inclination to stand outside for an hour and a half and miss the show only to wait for them to maybe come out back. And I know people that have had success with it and all the luck to them, but that's not my thing.
The only time I've ever done anything like that is the opposite of like going early to like a baseball game. And then while they're taking BP or while they're warming up, go down and try to get an autograph. I've done that, and I've had pretty good success doing it that way. But like you said, I'm already there. I'm there. I paid my ticket. I'm going to go sit down, after the 20, 30 minutes that you may try to get an autograph, and that's it. But I agree with you. Like that's like the most extreme level I would ever do is show up an hour early, hour and a half early, right when they open the gates to try to meet somebody, get a couple autographs. But I mean, to me, as I've gotten older, I enjoy watching my son do those things now. Let him go down and get the autographs. Like, to me, is way more fun than me trying to elbow my way in there just to get maybe one autograph on something. So that's good.
Yeah, and there are more. It seemed to be there were more people. I don't know. The name Patrick Stewart comes to mind for me that will only sign like the playbill of the show he was in, so there would be no use to really go anyway. It's just another way of doing your research, of who signs. Will they sign anything? It's kind of like I was talking with some of the guys about Katie Sackhoff now from Battlestar Galactica not signing any Star Wars things, probably because she's going to come under a private signing here soon or something. You don't know. But just doing the research.
I know the guys that would get her too if she does, and I'm sure they're working on her.
Yeah, but just doing the research, even playbills through the mail. Since we're talking about through the mail, that used to be a bigger thing. I want to say in the last 4 or 5 years, almost every request I've tried has come back. Please send the donation to yada yada yada. For the whatever the charity is.
Yeah,
I haven't tried one lately. So.
Some of the biggest stars too. That's going through Broadway. Sometimes that's one of the only ways to get them. You're not going to get them individually. You actually would get them through. They'd be on the cast of the playbill.
Right.
I know people that have tried to send to some big people in Broadway and got nothing, but people that sent specifically for the playbill, they got a signature, and it's not worth as much because it's in a group setting. But if you're, that's still cool to get. If you're looking for that one person, you still got them, you can still display it, but sometimes, that's the only way to get them.
As long as Anthony Daniels wasn't in a play with Carrie Fisher, you're okay.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about that. He'll sign across the whole thing.
You get the understudy signing over Harrison Ford or something, or, something like that.
Well, hey guys, it's been an hour and a half, almost an hour and 45 minutes now, and we could do this forever. But maybe there's something we could do on semi-regular basis, once a month or something, just kind of, you know, talk like we've been doing, just maybe have some Q&A, just kind of just, you know, just talk about our experiences. I don't know if that's something y'all want to do. We can talk about it more off camera, but I don't want to take too much more of everybody's time. I know it's, you know, Sunday evening, we all have families and jobs and everything we might get back to in the next couple of days or this evening. But I really appreciate Troy, TTM Autograph here on YouTube and then Doug's in Boston. I appreciate both of you guys coming on. Like I said, hopefully this will be fun. I mean, we had quite a few interactions, so that's great for an impromptu thing. Maybe we'll do it, like I said, more. I just want to say thank you both for doing it. So
Thanks
until
for
next time,
having me.
guys, thank you. All right.